Hey everyone, and welcome to the Marvel Snap Decks of the Week, the weekly series where I showcase the top 10 best decks in Marvel Snap. I do this utilizing a variety of different sources to ensure that you're getting the most reliable data possible to help you climb on that infinite ladder, and even get to infinite itself. With that being said, if you'd like to support the content, hitting the like button is the best thing you can do. It's free and it helps tremendously. Now we're going to be doing things a little differently this week because we actually have a bonus deck, which is my personal brew for Havoc called Havoc at the Disco. I'm including this because this week, for some reason, Second Dinner has doubled the token reward from 200 tokens to 400 tokens for completing the Havoc weekend mission. That has spurred some interest in Havoc and some decks, and this was by far the most successful deck that I played with Havoc, and well, it was my own design. It was running approximately a 58% win rate. The way the deck works, as a quick primer, is that you have a lot of lockdown capabilities for countering the Blob Thanos style meta. You are going to be playing Storm and Goose in kind of the wide locations, generally speaking, and then you're going to be playing Jessica Jones behind the Storm. You have the Goose location to prevent the Blob from being anywhere there, and then you're going to have Miss Marvel and Mr. Fantastic to earn initiative. And then what you're able to do on turn 5 is this is where you play Havoc. Okay, you don't play it early. You play Havoc on turn 5 with Wave. Havoc becomes a 2/8. Wave's obviously a 5. You get a ton of value, 13 power there. But the key thing is that your Alioth and your Doctor Doom will both be 4 cost, and that allows you to have your turn 6 play, even though Havoc is still going to prop up in power. So a really awesome play. This deck, I think, is 1 card away from being a legitimate contender. I've been trying to experiment with additional 1-drops and trying to figure out, like, do I cut Mr. Fantastic for another 1-drop? Because you often have 1 extra energy because you have 5 on turn 6 with the waved Doctor Doom and Alioth costing 4. So you do have the opportunity to play another 1-drop, whether it be like a Titania or some high power play to try and make a difference. So anyways, this was by far my favorite Havoc deck, and I want to showcase it to you. Again, it's a brew, so if you want to try Havoc Go and you have it, then this is one of my absolute favorite. Havoc on turn 5 with Wave, otherwise skip it. So now we're going to go into the actual top 10 decks. Now, we're going to be starting with on a little bit of the low end here. Once again, a little bit of a bonus talk here because we do have Sebastian Shaw as the season pass card. 52% win rate, a 0.15% cube rate, a little undertuned. However, it is it's the best deck for Sebastian Shaw if you're interested in finishing that weekend mission. So it is a Surfer Absorbing Man Brood style deck. It's good, but it's really underperforming relative to some of the others that we're going to be speaking about, so I'm not going to spend so much time on it. If you want to complete the missions, this is currently the best Sebastian Shaw deck available. Now, going right into the top of the meta, we do have Destroy coming in at number 9. Destroy coming in at a 55% win rate, a cube rate of 0.28, a little on the lower end, but kind of average for Destroy. There's nothing fancy here. It's traditional Destroy. The Nico is incredibly powerful in this type of shell, and quite frankly, it's exactly what you expect it to be. It's been none changed since Nico essentially came out. Coming in at number 8 is going to be Lockdown at a 55% win rate and a very strong cube rate of 0.50. This is a very high cube rate deck, although the win rate is not necessarily indicative of that. That might be some growing pains with the new Professor X being a little weaker. Yes, all these stats are incorporating the new stats. We don't have a large volume of games, but we are incorporating the recent patch, and obviously Professor X comes down to a 5/1. Overall, the deck's doing really well. However, what I do love here is the reemergence of Jessica Jones. Not only was it in my Havoc brew, but you're finding it in actually one of the meta lists, which is pretty exciting. And again, anytime you have Storm, Jessica Jones, especially with that 4/5 plus 4 power, is going to be a legit contender for securing that location, right? So I really like it, especially when you're trying to earn initiative, because the way you counter Blob, which we're going to be talking about eventually, is with something like an Alioth, as dirty as it might be. Moving on to number 7 here, this is where Loki falls. Now, Loki got hit very hard by the patch changes. Loki's primary decks are no longer using Werewolf by Night, and you've seen a reduction in both win rate and cube rate. They're both pretty fair, like Loki's strong, and that's primarily because of this Ronin meta that we kind of find ourselves in. I think we might be in a bit of a Ronin pocket meta as of recording. I think that'll change as we enter into later next week, but Loki favorably matches against Ronin because you stuff their hand and then Loki's like, okay, thanks, and then just kind of wipes everything out and has all your cards. And then obviously he can dump his hand very quickly, which is very bad for a Ronin player. That's propping up the win rate. But Loki did get hit pretty hard with Werewolf by Night getting taken to a 4/4, which of course is the same cost as Loki, which you either play Werewolf by Night and do all your bounce stuff, or you delay Loki to turn 5. it really brought the win rate of the deck down. So Loki did get hit pretty hard by the Werewolf by Night. I still think there's some experimentation happening with the best decks, so to speak, around Loki, but currently this is the highest win rate and the highest cube rate available. But again, I think we're also it's being propped up by the Ronin meta that we find ourselves in right now. So Loki still seeing some experimentation. So check back next week for a more updated Loki list. And with that being said, if you're not subscribed yet, it's crazy. Well over half of the people that watch this video are not subscribed. I would sincerely appreciate it if you simply consider subscribing just to keep up to date with my future content. I would really appreciate your support. As we talk about Ronin, one of the most, it is the most recent buff card in Marvel Snap, and there's a lot of excitement around Ronin. And you know I'm a Ronin believer. I've always loved Ronin. And so right now, this is the current highest win rate pure Ronin deck. Now we have another deck that's going to be higher win rate using Ronin, but there's something different about that deck, and I'll explain when we get there. But this is the straight up like stock Ronin. You're expecting like Mold, Baron, and like the whole shebang, right? This particular list is running Doctor Doom for the added play on turn 6. You do have the Ronin Mystique combination as well. I do like it a lot. The way that this deck wins is simply by clogging their hand, not allowing them to draw their blobs, and just adding some disruption. And then overall, just getting it done with some straight up vertical power. The change to Ronin, the extra 2 power, you feel it. It feels a lot more significant. Shang-Chi is notable in this meta because of the blob. So be aware that Shang-Chi always exists. And this deck does lack Cosmo, which my personal brews tend to include. Regardless, 57% win rate, a 4.46 cube rate. So a very strong deck in and of itself. Going on to number 5, it's back. It is Galactus Ramp, and I actually did play some of this during the Twitch drops, and I gotta say, it felt good. It felt good. You had a lot of options here, and the low-key winner of this deck, we call it Galactus Ramp. It really should be Orca Ramp, because Orca always takes people by surprise. They'll be looking at that empty location, and they're gonna be like, oh, they're gonna Galactus me. So then what they do is they go up by like 7 or 8. They think they got you. Oh, that's not in Galactus range anymore. And then you just slam down the Orca and win it. It's crazy how good Orca is. I love the card. The cube rate on Orca is nuts in and of itself. But seriously, Galactus Ramp, a 58% win rate, a plus 0.54 cube rate. A very, very good cube rate for a Galactus deck. Honestly, it's working tremendously in the meta right now. One you definitely want to keep an eye on. So if you're a Galactus lover, this here is making a comeback. Then we have Lock Blob. Now, this is one of the, we've got a couple of Blob decks we want to talk about here. Obviously, Blob is all over the place right now. People are experimenting with Ronin, but Blob feels like it's here to stay. And this was a 58% win rate with a cube rate of 0.48. And it's a Lock Blob. You actually have Lockjaw Thanos once again, but Blob is a component of this. I like the utilization of Vision. It's still running Professor X. Because you do have Jeff, and you're able to ramp out the Time Stone and everything like that. But notably, there's no Psylocke in this deck, which I found interesting. So 58% win rate, a bit of a different approach to playing Blob. So if you don't want to do the traditional Blob, which you know we're going to be talking about soon, this here is going to be a bit of a different kind of take on Blob, which I thought was really interesting. High win rate, high cube rate, and worth talking about in this video. And then, well, I just said we were going to talk about it again. Well, this is the more traditional Blob. This is Thanos Blob. This is the one that I think is making the most rounds. Now, being added in recently is Gladiator. Gladiator is being utilized in here simply because it trades favorably in a lot of the matchups right now. Like a lot of the Ronin cards don't really compete well with it. Well, Ronin will itself, but it does really well with the buff that it received. Naturally, you do have Dr. Octopus, which is a big body, but also extremely disruptive in the current meta. And then ultimately, like it's just straight up Thanos Blob, and it's good. And so far, this has been the most refined version of Thanos Blob. The tech inclusion of Enchantress is notable as well, because you are seeing a lot of ongoing with Ravonna and stuff like that. So even Living Tribunal's making a bit of a comeback to some degree. So anyways, we do have that to contend with, and this is currently the highest win rate of Blob at a plus 5.1 cube rate and a 58% win rate. Now, I did just hint at this. Now, this is crazy. Now, there is a card doing some heavy lifting here. Let me explain. Tribunal number 2. No, I'm not inebriated. I actually fact-checked this when I saw it. I'm like, there's no way. I checked multiple sources. Tribunal is overperforming in this particular list because of Super Scroll. We find ourselves in this Ronin pocket meta going into the weekend, going into the early week here, going into like the holiday break because of Ronin's buff, and people are excited. They're using cards they basically have never used, right? So The result is that Super Scroll is carrying in this ongoing meta, not just for Ronin, but with Ravonna and others. So now you have this Tribunal list that's running Super Scroll that's just elevating in the meta. A non-Super Scroll Tribunal list is running a traditional like Tribunal win rate. It's still decent. It's like 53% or something, 54, not bad, 59%. And I fact checked it. I tell you, this is factual. So anyways, the changes are pretty cool to the meta right now because Tribunal is on the climb. 59% win rate, 0.45%, sorry, not percentage, but you got it, cube rate. And so the top deck of the current meta right now as of recording is Ronin again, but with some consideration for the mirror match. Ronin is being played an absolute ton right now. Statistically, a 60% win rate, a plus 0.58 cube rate, remarkable cube rate. And it's essentially a Baronless Ronin deck that includes Super Scroll. It's Super Scroll that's carrying in the current meta right now. So if you're playing a deck and you're like, maybe I should just throw in Super Scroll. Who do I replace Iron Lad with, right? A lot of the questions we get up, just throw Super Scroll in there. He is absolutely carrying right now in the meta, this pocket meta we find ourselves in going into the holidays. So anyways, guys, this is the #1 deck in Marvel Snap right now, which actually surprised me, but seriously, it's putting up points, and I think it is indicative of the current meta we find ourselves in as well. Regardless, guys, thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate all your support, and we'll see you on that next Marvel Snap video.